watching NRA TV with Bill Whittle.
Hi, everybody. Live from Los Angeles, it's Hot Mike, and you just missed him. I mean, he was standing right over there 3.5, 4 minutes ago, and then he was very clear. He ordered a venti cappuccino, but he said he wanted the soy milk. They gave him almond milk instead, so he threw it against the wall and went storming out crying. But we expect he'll probably be back by tomorrow. We have had a real chance to dig into a couple of stories that we really want to look at today in detail, because they're very definitive stories. They say an awful lot about the nature of the people that oppose those of us that love freedom and individual rights. They say an awful lot about their tactics and especially about their particular weaknesses and ego and all the rest of this silly nonsense that happens just over the hill there in Hollywood. So here's the situation. As I'm sure you've heard by now, we had NRA did a tremendous video with Dana Loesch, and we'll show you that in just a second. If you listen to the language of this, you're going to find it's forceful and it's strong, and apparently that got some people quite upset. So before we can really get into breaking it down, let's have a look at Dana's piece, which is called Freedom's Safest Space.
They use their media to assassinate real news. They use their schools to teach children that their president is another Hitler. They use their movie stars and singers and comedy shows and award shows to repeat their narrative over and over again. And then they use their ex-president to endorse the resistance, all to make them march, make them protest, make them scream racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia, to smash windows, burn cars, shut down interstates and airports, bully and terrorize the law-abiding, until the only option left is for the police to do their jobs and stop the madness. And when that happens, they'll use it as an excuse for their outrage. The only way we stop this, the only way we save our country and our freedom, is to fight this violence of lies with the clenched fist of truth. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
I saw that video and I thought, awesome, way to go. And then I heard that everybody's all up in arms about it, and I said, what are they upset about? I'm not joking, I'm serious. I didn't know what they could get upset about in that video. As far as I'm concerned, Dana Loesch just basically spoke the truth in a very, very plain way. She didn't call for violence against people. She talked about smashing their lives with the fist of truth. And here's what's so interesting about all of this. The backlash against this segment and against Dana personally has been large. And what they're basically saying is that Dana Loesch is calling for armed uprising, and that Dana Loesch is talking about assassinating, political opponents, and all the rest of it. There's a bunch of things going on here. The first thing that's going on that's really raising the kettle temperature for them is that Dana Loesch and the NRA and others of us out there are actually fighting back now. And we're fighting back in the same kind of emotional terms that the left has not seen before. It's been a tendency of conservatives to use reason and logic and history and facts to make a case for our side because they're on our side. That's why we're conservatives. If the truth were somewhere else, we'd move. So the left expects a rather gentleman Jim kind of a thing, hail fellow, well met kind of country club response from conservatives when it comes to all of this resist, all the assassination porn for Donald Trump and all the rest of it. And what they're starting to find out is that a number of people, Dana specifically in this piece, myself included, and our buddy Grant Stinchfield, who we'll get to in a minute, many people on the right are starting to respond with the same kind of emotional message that the left has used all the time. And folks, I hate to be the person to say this because, like you, I'm a law and order guy. Like you, I'm a decent guy. I try to be well-mannered. I was raised to be well-mannered. And I don't like making a fuss about things in terms of having outbursts. But the fact of the matter is people vote based on what they feel, not based on what they think. And the left's reaction to this is largely, initially, against the fact that we are using intense, passionate words, and most importantly, we're using extraordinarily well-edited video to make a point that is an irrefutable point, which is namely all of the violence in this entire society today is coming from the left. It's all coming from the left. They paid people. We have Podesta's email saying we're going to pay people to go to Donald Trump's rallies and disrupt them violently, and the protests on the inauguration day and smashing the windows and beating people over the head with bicycle locks and all the rest of it. It's right there. It's in pictures. There's no denying it. And so this visceral response from the left, which has been really widespread, directed at Dana and at the NRA, is coming from the fact that they know that there is no response to this. She is stating a fact. There's the video evidence of the fact. You put these two things together, and it's pretty compelling, and they don't like it very much. Now, here's the thing about this kind of political war that we're in. We're in a war of ideas, and, you know, this is not a war of missiles and muskets. It's a war of ideas. It's a war of narratives and stories. So Dana launches this attack, which is pretty much what it was. There's this big counterattack. And then here, we don't really take that kind of thing very lightly. You know, if somebody wants to pick a fight with us over freedom, you know, okay. So our buddy Grant Stinchfield had a response to the response, not to Dana's video, but to the response to Dana's video. And we're going to look at that in 3 pieces because I don't think we can handle all of that awesome in 1 piece. So here's part 1 of Grant's response.
To every member of the violent left who's having a meltdown over Dana Lash's NRA ad, get over yourself. You people openly call for the assassination of our president and then claim the NRA is inciting violence. You set fire to buildings and attack people in the streets and then go ballistic for being called out. You look down on gun owners, Trump supporters, and states without coasts, all the while relying on your armed security to protect you in your marbled office buildings and your fenced-in mansions. And to those of you on the violent left who claim we believe there's an us and them in this country, you're absolutely right. There are those of us who believe in freedom. Then there are those of you who actively burn down our country because you can't get over the fact your so-called progressive didn't win the election. Get over it and grow up.
The violent left, those of you on the violent left, Grant's really onto something here. And it's the nature of the opposition that we have in this country on the left. It's the nature of that opposition to have a sense of doublethink, to feel one thing and say something else. It's just constant with them. For example, you'll see millionaire movie stars saying, well, I think we should raise taxes, and I'm a very rich person, and I'm going to pay more taxes, and I think we should have a tax increase. And then they tell their accountants to get every single deduction they possibly can. As Grant pointed out, they come down against guns, but they all have armed security details, and all they want open borders, but their houses are privately secured with all kinds of intrusion systems and private police and so on and so on and so on. So they're used to this kind of doublethink where they have to say one thing for the rubes and the hicks out there and then do what it is they really want to do. And it's showing up here in a pretty spectacular way in a term that Grant used, and I'm going to continue to use, which is the violent left. The left has always been violent. It's always been violent. You know, the left is, you can't count the bodies that communism has taken away. It's 100 million, no less than that. No less than that. Because this collectivist idea, the idea that the collective is more important than the individual, always means that somebody's got to be the villain and somebody's got to go and beat the villain up. And when things don't work in this socialist utopia, there's got to be some reason for it other than the fact that the theory's barking mad nuts. So now these victims have to be eliminated. And we don't particularly care to be victims or eliminated here in the United States of America. We're not built that way here. So Grant's point is great, and the left is accusing the National Rifle Association of violence, when in point of fact, she's simply using strong language. The actual violence, the actual blood is flowing from our people being hit by their people, and it's not once, it's all the time. Let's take a look at Grant's second segment here on his response to the response on Dana's piece.
I'm talking to you, Tamika Mallory. You write a letter to the NRA on behalf of the Women's March claiming our Clenched Fist of Truth ad was an attack on minority communities. You call it dangerous and demand it be taken down? I'm here to tell you, not a chance. Where was your letter to Madonna, Tamika, when she used your march to talk about blowing up the White House?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Then there's California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. Listen to this tweet. Watching this NRA video sent a chill down my spine, followed by a feeling of sadness and fear that I haven't shaken. Seems the left has gone from getting chills down their legs at the sight of Obama to getting chills down their spines when they hear the truth. Wake up, Gavin. The ad shows footage of leftist protesters burning down Berkeley, one of your schools, to block free speech on campus. This NRA ad is an open call to violence to protect white supremacy, said professional writer DeRay McKesson. DeRay, no one, and I mean no one, takes you seriously. Your organized riots have caused property damage to more than 850 businesses and injured more than 100 law enforcement officers. Don't come at us with acts of violence. Fix your own problems first. And not to be outdone, Chris Murphy, the U.S. Senator Michael Bloomberg bought for himself 3 years ago, stated, quote, "I think the NRA is telling people to shoot us." Give me a break. And Russia told the NRA to create this ad too. Really, Senator? How dare you? When it was your Bernie Sanders supporter who opened fire on Republican congressmen in Virginia.
I have a friend named Evan Sayed, and he's a conservative stand-up comedian, which is rarer even than being a conservative actor or a musician. And Evan Sayed pointed out that the left excels at rhetorical skills. They excel at the ability to talk about things. They're very, very, very good at it. It's actions that they have a problem with. And they see rhetoric to be the same as actual violence. But let's look at some of these examples that Grant listed. First, the first one, this woman is saying that the clenched fist of truth is racist somehow. You know, I know you guys keep reaching for this, and when I say you guys, I mean the left. I know you have one weapon basically, and it's the racism weapon. You're people that have nothing in your arsenal except for nuclear weapons. And here's the problem for you leftists. Every time you use racism like this, when there is no racism, your bomb gets a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker. There's nothing racist in there in that video in terms of Dana's language. Nothing. But, you know, you got to call racism, right? Because if you're a one-trick pony, you better know how to do the trick. So there's that. Then there's a Gavin Newsom feeling shaken and disturbed. He's not been able to put away these deep feelings of revulsion and fear. Give me a break, please. Please. Your stock in trade, Gavin. You have one thing to sell, and that's all. You have one thing to sell to the American people, and that's the sense of unearned moral superiority. How could these people possibly call for this kind of rhetoric? It makes me sick to my stomach. I can't imagine. Please, no. It doesn't work that way. As Grant pointed out, it's our people who are being beaten up by your people on the left, beaten up, rioting, breaking windows, all of it. Did that cause you a sense of unease and discomfort? I suppose it didn't. It causes us a sense of unease and discomfort. The idea of people marching down the streets, burning cars, smashing windows is lawlessness. And we don't do lawlessness very well, and we're not going to tolerate it. And, of course, you can tie all of this in with the stuff that Gavin does support and things like Black Lives Matter, which essentially is there to provide a fig leaf to start assassinating our police officers, as happened over the weekend in New York City. And then finally, that third tweet, I think that the NRA is trying to tell its members to kill us all. You should perhaps cancel your membership. Just a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, there was a guy who had a mission to kill somebody. He had a mission to kill a particular political group. He had a mission and he had a shopping list. He had a list of potential targets and he wanted to get every single one of them. And that list was not a list of progressive politicians. It was a list of Republicans, and it was a list compiled by a guy who was involved with Occupy Wall Street and all the rest. So save your hyperventilation and save your moral faux outrage, this posturing that you do. Save it. We're not interested in it anymore. It doesn't work anymore. okay? This is probably the point I'm trying to make. Your unearned moral superiority act doesn't work anymore. It's played out. It's done. We've seen it. We know that no matter what happens, you're going to play that card, and we just don't care anymore about you acting offended about things. We don't care. I'll tell you what we do care about. We care about our personal security. We care about our property in terms of lawlessness that's being actually encouraged by Barack Obama and the resistance and all the rest. We care about a country where people can walk safely down the street. We care about a country where people can disagree about ideas and listen to people speak without having to get themselves bashed in the head with a bunch of things like bicycle locks by a bunch of cowardly fascists called Antifa, who dress in black and they have the mask and they think they're Che Guevara and they're so proud of themselves, as if they're at any real risk of anything happening in this country. You want to know why the NRA exists? You want to know why people have firearms? People have firearms to protect themselves against what you're doing now, against this lawlessness, and I'll go further than that. We have firearms to protect ourselves against the kind of government that you've been trying to put into place, which is a government that simply cannot conceive of the idea of defeat. When Donald Trump beat you on election night, and he beat you fair and square, you have started what is now a 8-month-old temper tantrum. You're a bunch of children on the floor at Walmart wailing and screaming at the top of your lungs because you didn't get the toy you wanted. You're not adults. Adults understand that sometimes in a political fight, you win some, you lose some. If you lose some, that's the democracy. That's the rules. We have to agree. We're going to have disagreements. We'll have a vote. The people that lose the vote have to go along with the vote, because if they don't, there's no country, there's no civilization, there's no law, there's no nothing. And that is the language of the left. So if you want to talk about actual violence, and if you want to talk about destroying civilization and decency and comedy and all that stuff, all of the nice things, no. Mitt Romney was probably the most decent man ever to run for office, with the possible exception of George Washington. And you made him out to be a racist, and you made him out to be a misogynist. So this is all you've got. We know what you're about. We're just not going to do it anymore. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a second story of intimidation from the left here in the United States of America. I'm Bill Whittle. This is Hot Mike, and you're watching NRA TV.
For 8 straight years, Barack Obama flooded the appellate courts and the federal judiciary with judges who truly despise Second Amendment freedom. More than 300 Obama-appointed anti-gun judges represent an infection for which there is no cure other than time and vigilance. They will pose a threat to our gun rights for decades to come. We also face a growing group of anti-Second Amendment elitist billionaires, led by George Soros and Michael Bloomberg. By pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into state and local elections, They have succeeded in confusing many voters into believing clever labeling like universal background checks and so-called common sense schemes will make a difference in the safety and security of our communities. The truth is, the anti-gun billionaires have only one goal: the absolute eradication of the Second Amendment freedom for the average American citizen. Not for their security forces, their families, and themselves, but for you, the everyday American who stormed the polls in an act of ultimate defiance of the elites. They will continue to enjoy the support of an openly dishonest media that truly hates your right to speak, your right to worship, and your right to vote. And most of all, your right to keep and bear arms.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hot Mic. I'm Bill Whittle here on NRA TV, and we've been talking about Dana Loesch's piece, which was tremendous, Freedom's Safest Place, and then the backlash to that, and then Grant's response to this, and so on, and some thoughts of my own. And, you know, while we were away on break, it occurred to me I really do finally see something that I just missed before. I know why they reacted this viscerally to this piece by Dana. They reacted like this because it takes away their victimhood. They're not the victims anymore. We're the victims. And unlike their victimhood, which is just to whine and complain about it, we're saying, well, we're not going to be victims. But it took away their victimhood. It showed that they're the ones who are committing these acts of violence, not us. We're the ones who are the people who are being harmed here. And you can't have a left without victimhood, you see? You just can't have it. If you don't have a victim, then you don't have any reason to have an all-powerful state to come in and basically rectify this so-called injustice. If you don't have that victimhood, you've got nothing on the left. And this video has taken it away from them, and they don't like it. Let's look at that final installation of Grant's epic response to the people who are criticizing Dana's piece.
Now the media uses this concocted controversy to claim gun owners are upset with the NRA. You know what I've seen? I've seen a swell of support. Gun owners and freedom-loving Americans who are sick of this hypocrisy, getting behind the greatest defender of freedom in history. That's the NRA, because we will never back down. But most of all, what really got at the left was this simple line uttered by one very strong woman.
The only way we stop this, the only way we save our country and our freedom is to fight this violence of lies with the clenched fist of truth.
It is our purest weapon in this ongoing war for truth. So to every member of the lying media and the violent left demanding an apology, let me be very clear. It'll never happen. We don't apologize for warning America about chaos creators who want to impose their will upon us through their violence and lies. And we stand firm with the clenched fist of truth while they wilt with an open mouth of lies.
I'm just really proud to know that guy, honestly. It was fun to go out and have a beer with him. He's a terrific guy. Grant got it right on the nose. He got it right on the nose. The left fears us, and they fear us because for the first time in history, the population of the country has decided that they're not just going to go willingly off into that good night. They fear us because of things like the videos that you saw, the Dana video, all of it, the commercials that we ran, people being prepared, people protecting themselves, people not dependent on a government, people who are independent. All of this scares them to death, and that's why they're having the reaction they're having. Let's just quickly cover another story that's just really got my attention, and it's something that I find absolutely reprehensible. You know, when the founders got together and created this government and created a constitution, they did a superb job of creating checks and firewalls, really, between the government and the people. So things like government censorship are still pretty much impossible in America today. The government can't censor anything, but what we find is that the government doesn't have to censor anything anymore because of the left's political pressure and the left's sense of demonization. If the government's not telling somebody to shut up, but somebody like CNN is, well, then somebody has to shut up. And that's not America, and I'm going to show you why. A couple of days ago, a person did a tweet, tweeted a small video. It's a very short little video. We'll show it to you in just a second. Because, as you may recall from last week, CNN was in complete meltdown mode over the fact that people in CNN were admitting on camera that this whole Donald Trump-Russia connection doesn't exist. It's a witch hunt, and they're doing it for ratings. And so that hit them very, very hard. And then some private citizen, wasn't the NRA, wasn't me as a professional, some guy somewhere spent probably 10 minutes, found an old clip of Donald Trump, and they ran this. Here you can see Donald Trump doing something from a publicity event a couple of years ago, I guess it was, and he's just simply put the CNN logo over this guy. Donald Trump gets down on him, throws a couple of fake punches, and body slams him. There he goes. Boom. Down. Boom. And so on. Now, here's where it gets disgusting. Okay? That's in good fun. And I'd like to stress again, that this was not something that Donald Trump put together. It's not something that any professionals put together. It was just a guy someplace who put it together. And then CNN, your most trusted name in news, decided to put some serious resources into this. They didn't put resources into the email scandal or Fast and Furious or Benghazi or anything, but they'll put resources, lots of them, into Sarah Palin, and they'll put a lot of resources into this. So CNN, the news agency, had to find out who this person was. This unknown individual American citizen, and they did find out who this person was. And CNN threatened this individual with exposing his name, his address, his phone number, everything, open to ridicule. He knows, the person that made this knows what the left is capable of. And CNN had the audacity to say, you will apologize for this. And so he did. He apologized because he's terrified of being called out by this gigantic, enormous corporate organization of fascists and cowards. That's what they are. And they made this man apologize for a joke video for something that is so lighthearted, something so silly, something so trivial, something so absolutely innocent and harmless that two things come to mind immediately. First of all, it is living hell in CNN headquarters right now, because if something that innocuous could cause that kind of reaction among the CNN brass, then you know CNN is in serious, serious, serious trouble. Now, the thing that's just out and out disgusting is the whole thing in the first place, right? We are going to say to you that you have to apologize, and if you don't apologize, we're going to expose you. It's blackmail is what it is. It's blackmail by a giant corporation against an individual American who's trying to exercise his First Amendment freedoms, and he's being bullied into silence, and not just silence, but apology by the fascists and the cowards over at CNN. It's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful, and they're getting their blowback on that too. Starting to get limbered up here, and it's time to go. I'm Bill Whittle here from Los Angeles, California. This is the Hot Mic Show, and we will see you tomorrow right here on NRA TV.